Hello and welcome to another buyer's guide for Star Wars Legion. Today we are going to be looking at what to buy first if you're trying to play as the galaxy's most notorious baddies, also known as the Imperials. And while many competitive players will tell you that the Imperials are not in the best place right now, they have been an incredibly powerful army for a long period of Legion's lifespan. And just because suppression lists are no longer winning tournaments does not mean you won't enjoy playing these guys. They have a very fun mixture of offensive and defensive capabilities, along with some pretty powerful special forces units and very unique heroes. But with such a robust lineup of units and a set of armor for each biome you may be in, it can definitely be intimidating for new players just getting into the faction who want to know where they should start. And that's exactly why this video exists. I'm going to show you which box sets and which units you should buy first. That is going to give you a collection that can serve as a foundation for list building and allow you to start playing Star Wars Legion with comprehensive and effective lists. So if you're playing Star Wars Legion because you really want to run an ATST, don't let this video hold you back from buying one just because I don't recommend it. Think of the ATST as the cherry on top of the sundae, while the units that I recommend in this video are going to be the bowl, spoon, and ice cream that it sits upon. Again, it's a foundation for any list building, something you can start branching off of and adding more specialized units onto afterwards. However, in each of these videos, I do like to give each player two different routes in which they can approach their collection, both of which are, again, going to build that foundation, but in different ways that might synergize with each other, thanks to different command strategies and unit interaction. And basically, in this video, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, we are going to have a standard Imperial list that's going to make use of Stormtroopers as your core troops, and then focus a lot on different heroes and Special Forces units, who are really going to bring the hammer down on your opponent. After that, we're going to be looking at a base force that is going to make up of all the units from the Rogue One expansion, and you will be making use of units like Shore Troopers, Krennic, and Death Troopers, as the Rogue One wave was incredibly generous for the Empire. But after that, for each of these recommended buyer's guides, you are going to see it broken down into three different tiers. The first tier is going to be the bare minimum that you need to start playing Star Wars Legion, at least at an 800 point standard list capacity. And despite being the minimal, lowest budget buy-in, this should hold you over for a good amount of time while you paint all those models. Because yes, you are going to paint all of those models. And this should give you several games of enjoyment before you start getting a little tired of your limited collection and want to start adding more models to it. And when that time comes around, you are going to go ahead and buy into that secondary tier there. This will not only give you more units, but also more tools in your list building arsenal, which for the Empire usually comes in the form of specialists and more heroes, who are usually going to give you a lot of playstyle variety for a relatively marginal increase in investment. And lastly, we are going to have the tertiary tier, which would be the highest buy-in cost if you decide to go all in. And this will start to introduce a little bit more variety into your list building abilities by adding things like specialized operatives or special forces units who are going to add some more unique features into your list when you do decide to field them, and really give you the most options when it comes to building a standard 800 point list, and will give you a final comprehensive setup for an army collection, which will give you the green light to start buying whatever you want without hindering your list building capabilities. And now that I explained how the unit guide works, I do have to throw out a quick disclaimer here, one that I've done on the previous 3 videos in this series, and it has to do with the prices listed in this buyer's guide. First up, all of the prices here are based on MSRP value. You can usually find these on sale, especially the core box sets, and a lot of the older soft plastic Empire stuff. And there are sites like Miniature Market that usually have them on sale for 10 to 20% off around the clock. After that, I do have the core starter sets listed at $50 each, and this is based off the idea that you are buying it at full MSRP value and then also splitting it with someone else. So $100 down the middle, 2 ways, is of course going to be $50 each. But that original core set is very old now, and I very often see it on sale. I think during Black Friday last year I saw it as low as $65, but you really shouldn't have any trouble finding it for at least $80. And as we all know, there are other ways to save even more money on these core sets if you buy them and break them down, which is a great strategy if you're a new player and you can't find someone to split the contents of the box with you. And if you guys are new players or just looking to start a new faction, and you either want to save a ton of money on these core sets, or you simply don't have someone to split it with, go check out my video titled How to Break Down a Legion Core Set. It will show you how to get a core box set or more and break it down to make some money back on them, which can actually be very economic if you do it properly. But with all that information and disclaimers out of the way for the fourth and final time, I can finally get on to the video where I show you how to start collecting an army for the Imperial faction. And first up here, we are going to have our standard Imperial army, as I mentioned earlier, one that's going to focus on having some staple stormtrooper units who will be led by the mighty heroes of the Empire. And right off the bat here, you're going to go out and buy 2 standard core sets, as this will not only give you all of the tools, accessories, and rules needed to play Star Wars Legion, but also Darth Vader in his commander formats, followed up by 4 squads of stormtroopers and 2 squads of the 74Z speeder bikes. And that right there is going to be a very solid way to start off Star Wars Legion, with a commander, 4 core units, and 2 support squads. And I just want to emphasize that 4 squads of stormtroopers will probably hold you over for 90% of the list you try and build, as you rarely end up running more than 4 stormtrooper squads in any Imperial list. Yes, it definitely happens, but you're going to be more focused on your heroes and your special forces units. And a few stormtrooper squads with heavy weapons in them should make for a pretty strong backbone, while still leaving you enough points for other heavy hitters. But next up here, I am going to recommend that you go out and buy another Imperial commander to back up Vader, as he's a somewhat difficult commander to use, and over time I think you will start using him less and less, so having another commander that you're familiar with is definitely going to be a welcome addition to that collection. And here, you're going to see a bundle that's going to appear for the first time, but will be reoccurring throughout the video. It's 3 commander units that I think are very viable and good for an Imperial player to have, and they are going to be General Veers, Iden Versio, and Agent Kallus. Veers is an awesome support commander who's very inexpensive and synergizes very well with the Imperial's overall core gimmick, especially in relation with stormtroopers. They work very good together hand in hand. But after that, we are going to have Iden Versio, who is one of the best heroes in Star Wars Legion. She's relatively affordable, she hits like a truck, and she is one of the best brawler commanders with a ranged weapon profile, backed up by some seriously awesome keywords. And lastly, we have Agent Kallus, who is a bit of an oddball to me. He's kind of halfway between a brawler commander and a support commander, with some interesting card gimmicks, but I think he's very versatile, and that alone makes him worth considering in my opinion. So next up after those 2 core sets, go out and buy one of these 3 commanders, whichever one you want, whether it be based off your favorite Star Wars media, or one that you think is going to match your playstyle the best. I don't think any of them are a bad investment, and you can always come back and buy the others down the road, and in fact I'm going to recommend you do that later in this video. But after that, we are going to see another bundle right behind this hero bundle, and this is what I'm going to call the operative bundle. And here, you're going to see 3 different operative units, who are going to be Bossk, Boba Fett, and Iden Versio again. Why Iden Versio again, you ask? Well, she has an ability that allows her to deploy as either an operative or a commander, so you can grab Iden for either of these recommended slots here. But don't buy her twice, obviously. And if you do buy her once in this initial tier, don't think that you don't need to buy anything from the other slot. I still highly recommend getting one from each of these, regardless of which one you get Iden for. But with these 2 core sets backed up by another commander unit and another operative, is definitely going to allow you to reach 800 points, all for a budget of just $130. But if you're really crafty about those box sets, like I mentioned earlier, you can break these down, resell the components you don't need, and really get the price down on this. $50 for half of a core box set with the original starter set is a serious highball, and for the craftier buyers out there, you can probably get this initial buy-in well below $100. But that is going to move us on to our secondary tier here, which is relatively light, consisting of a few unit upgrades that are going to flesh out your existing force, but mostly by upgrading rather than expanding. And first up here, we are going to have the Imperial Specialist Upgrade Expansion, a box set that's going to give you the Imperial Officer Commander unit, along with several personnel upgrades, and then also the generic command cards for the Empire, which definitely do come in handy, which make the Specialist Upgrade packs inevitable must-buys, in my opinion. And if you buy in at the second tier here, you're going to get it out of the way quick. But after that, we are going to have 2 sets of the Imperial Stormtrooper Unit Upgrade Expansion. And these box sets are going to give you 2 new personnel and 2 new heavy weapons to put into your Stormtrooper squads, which in theory are meant to tweak them to different playstyles, but in actuality, you're just getting 2 awesome heavy weapon options here. The RT-97C and the T-21 are both really good heavy weapons that the Stormtroopers make great use of, and those 2 extra personnel that come in each of these box sets, well, you could simply not field them as personnel and instead just use them as a whole nother 4-man Stormtrooper squad. In fact, these box sets actually come with a Stormtrooper unit card, so you can do just that. And for another $60, buying in at this secondary tier is going to bump your total investment value up to $190. But once again, that's highballing the MSRP, and if you're crafty with your purchases, you can probably get this down to $150. But that will move us along to the tertiary tier, the final tier that's going to start branching out and adding some more spice and variety. And first up here, I'm going to recommend you go back and buy another one of those commanders from that commander bundle we looked at earlier. Once again, pick up whichever one you like, though I will say at this point, I think every Imperial player should own Veers and Iden, so if you've neglected either of those, wink wink, nudge nudge. But after that, I'm going to recommend you go out and pick up a Special Forces box. Either go with Inferno Squad or perhaps the Scout Troopers. Know that Inferno Squad is going to give you a lot more list building capabilities and synergize very well with Iden Versio, but it does also cost $10 more than the Scout Troopers. But on the other hand, while the Scout Troopers are less expensive, and you do get that legendary sniper team, just know that's pretty much the only thing you're getting this box for. Standard Scout Trooper units are very unpopular in Star Wars Legion, as they're just not very good, and you pretty much are going to be paying $25 here just to run a 2-man sniper squad. In fact, I know Imperial players, you know who you are, who have purchased Scout Trooper expansions and painted the 2 sniper models and just left the rest in gray plastic limbo. And honestly, I can't blame players who do that, but it is a major drawback I need to point out when it comes to these earlier Strike Team box sets. But at another $50, this tertiary buy-in is going to bump you up to the $235 range, which again, if you're crafty, won't be hard to get below $200, but will give you a very comprehensive starter collection that's going to get you a good hang for the game and allow you to put a lot of matches underneath your belt before you start yearning for a whole lot more diversity in your collection. But that is going to wrap up our standard Imperial Stormtrooper army and move us along to another avenue of approach that you can take when you start collecting Imperials. And that, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be a SCARIF themed army that's going to make use of a lot of the Rogue One wave releases, as it was quite the impressive addition to the Imperial range, and I think you can definitely build a healthy army around it. So of course we are going to have the same 3 tiers again, and buying in at the first tier, you are going to start off with 1 core set. That again is going to net you all the tools and accessories you need to play Star Wars Legion, along with some other foundational units such as Darth Vader in his commander form, 2 squads of Stormtroopers, hey, they were on SCARIF too, and again a squad of those speeder bikes. But after this singular core set, I am going to say go out and grab Director Orson Krennic. He is a very inexpensive and very awesome commander for the Imperial faction, one who 100% synergizes with the Rogue One wave, and will be right at home if you follow this guide for your starting collection. But I will say this about Orson Krennic, if you're new to the game and you use him and you feel like he just sucks and you're not getting your points worth, don't completely give up on him. He definitely requires some finesse and strategy to use properly, and until you start really getting a feel for the core mechanics of Star Wars Legion and how they interact throughout the course of a battle, Krennic's synergies may not make a whole lot of sense and may be difficult for you to pull off, but once you can get it working for you, it really does work. But after Krennic, I am going to say go out and buy 2 boxes of Shore Troopers. These guys are a fantastic core unit, and just because they're not dominating the competitive scene anymore does not mean they're not worth collecting. They just have so much going for them with that sort of pseudo-elite core trooper units, and having that mortar unit built in there is also just a nice added bonus. It really used to be the reason you would take Shore Troopers, but I still think you can run them with or without the mortars, and having them there and being able to build suppression list right off the bat is very much a welcome addition, and getting these 2 box sets is going to give you 6 core trooper options right off the bat, and you'll have a ton of fun going from there. And that is going to bring this initial buy-in tier to $123, which will be the bare minimum you need to start playing an 800-point list in Star Wars Legion. And once again, I will iterate that you can get this down by buying things on sale. However, it's not quite as flexible as the previous list, and though I do have it listed about $10 lower than the initial buy-in on the previous list, note that the price really fluctuates on these core sets, and the more core sets you have, the more overinflated the price estimate actually is. So while this SCARIF army may seem like the cheaper buy-in than the previous army, know that it's not exactly true due to those core sets and how crafty you can get with breaking them down. But next up, we are going to have the secondary tier for our SCARIF army. And first up here, I am going to recommend you go out and buy General Veers. I'm not going to beat around the bush with the commander bundle here. Get Veers, he's very useful, and he synergizes extremely well with everything Rogue One related. And at just $13, I can almost guarantee that you're not going to regret buying him. But after that, we are going to have the Imperial Specialist Upgrade expansion again, for all the same reasons mentioned in the previous recommended build. This is something that I would consider essential, so go ahead and add it to your shopping cart if you're trying to buy in at this second tier. But lastly, in the second tier, we are going to have the Imperial Death Troopers, one of the best Special Forces units in the game. Yes, they are expensive, they are vulnerable to keywords like Pierce, but leveraging quantity versus quality units in Star Wars Legion is something everyone needs to learn one way or another, and I think Death Troopers are a great way of doing that. And if you are playing more casual games of Star Wars Legion, which you probably will be doing during your first few months of playing, you are definitely going to fall in love with these guys. But that is going to wrap up the secondary tier buy-in, which is going to come out to around $181 US, again, roughly, and is really just going to start going for the throat for a core Rogue One themed army with some pretty intense synergies. But that is going to move us along to our tertiary tier, which will be the final purchases for this SCARIF-themed foundation for your Imperial army. And first up here, I'm going to say go out and buy a second box of Death Troopers. These guys tend to be very hard to deal with if there's multiple of them operating on the battlefield, and Orson Krennic really does like being surrounded by 2 squads of them, though I would probably cap it off at that. I think 3 Death Trooper squads is a little bit overkill, with 2 being the sweet spot for a player who's looking to take the Rogue One route. But after that Death Trooper expansion, we are going to have another hero bundle here, but one that is going to be a little bit more rigid, and I'm going to recommend you either pick up Operative Vader, Iden Versio, Bossk, or Agent Kallus. In my opinion, these are some of the better heroes you can get for the Empire, and whichever one you do decide to get is going to start adding a little bit more variety and flavor to your Rogue One list, which should help keep your games fresh a few months into playing the game. And that will cap out our recommended buy-in list for the Rogue One SCARIF army, which, should you go in at all 3 tiers, is going to be $221 US. And once again, for the 6th time in this video, that's a bit of a highball. But that is going to wrap up my what to buy first when you're getting started in the Imperial faction. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, consider leaving a like down below. If you have any questions for me or other experienced players in Star Wars Legion, please comment below. We would be happy to respond and give you any advice that we can offer down below. And if you guys want to see more content like this and learn how to further use your Imperial army on the battlefield in Star Wars Legion, consider subscribing and turning on notifications, as I do a ton of Legion content such as unit tier rankings and in-depth unit reviews, which is aimed at informing people on how to strategize and operate with new units, something that I believe a new Star Wars Legion player would find quite useful. But as always, thanks for watching, and until next time guys, take care.